Welcome back, everyone. Here we are on the Libertators channel. We've got another tournament review for you. This one is for the Invitational that was being held at Go4 Games in Metairie, Louisiana. If you've been watching the channel, you've been hearing us talk about practicing for tournaments. And this was the end-of-year culmination of a series of tournaments that was being run by John, our local TO. If you won one of the major awards, best overall, best general, best painted, or best sportsman, you qualified to receive an invitation for this final event in December. So it ended up being, all said and done, the top 6 of those who were awarded and invited and who were able to make it. So this is kind of us talking through our experience. And tonight I have Philip Hickman with me, who also achieved an invitation.
Hello all.
Yeah, and once again, our purpose here is to get you guys to be encouraged to participate in your local tournaments. Not every tournament is a full-on competitive gamer-only kind of an event, and John did a good job of making sure this was a hobby tournament. A lot of focus on every aspect of the game, to include sportsmanship and painting, as well as being the best general. John was unable to TO the event. Papa Nurgle got him. So we had Mutt and Anthony who stepped in last minute to make the event really happen. And we want to be very thankful for them running that for us. And once again, this is just for us to share our experience with you guys so that you can maybe have some learnings and then get excited about attending an event. Got anything to add to that, Philip?
Yeah, I just want to say that we really appreciate John for running the tournament series. This is only the second out of the 4 that I was able to attend, but between this one and the last one, it was fantastic environment, great people, professionally run, and just a great way of hitting all the aspects of the hobby. It's not just competitive, mind you. It's lore, it's painting, it's sportsmanship, and they did a really good job of having the best of the best show up for this championship. Whether it was beautifully painted armies or just a great player experience through sportsmanship. It was all represented there in the 6 individuals that were able to show.
Very much so. So the 2 armies that we chose to take to the final invitational of the year were Khorne and Skaven. And here's kind of some reasons. Why did you pick Khorne going into this?
Again, I've been really enjoying Khorne over the last 6 months or so. I started painting them back in the beginning of the year, and the original list that I had in mind was a full Mortals list with a lot of foot soldiers, blood warriors, and skull reapers. Just that takes a lot to paint. I personally don't allow myself to play with models that are unpainted. So this is the true kind of list that I was going for. Last event I played, the skull crushers and Scarbrand and stuff because it was fewer models to paint to get it up on the table. But here we are with I played a full mortals list, and it's just something I've always wanted to do, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I took them.
Yeah, they look beautifully painted. We'll have some pictures coming up here in a minute for that. For me, Skaven was the army I wanted to take. It was the plan from the beginning. If I ended up getting into the Invitational, I've got a big old foam cheese hat and a little stuffed rat that I bring. This is my favorite army. And that was my motivation, was it be the first time that Skaven would be played in any of these tournaments in the series. So that was also kind of a special moment for me. So kind of going into lists, I'll go first and discuss the list that I brought. The inspiration behind this list was just having an extra bell laying around and really been wanting to play them for a long time. Only played them one time in the new book, and they were pretty much gutted. But with the points drops, it kept going down and down and down. finally was just like, well, let's do it. And they have a bodyguard mechanic that kind of makes them difficult to lift, so it's kind of a weird anti-screen kind of a feel. So what I had going here was grand strategy of Arch Corruptors in the Mortal Realms, which meant that I had to have 3 heroes left on the board, any combination of Pestilence Clan or Master Clan. And I had 6 heroes, so it was really just any 3 of those heroes that were alive by the end of the game. I got my 3 points. So not too hard, which is a lot to say for usually Skaven grand strategies are usually hard to come by because their book grand strategies haven't necessarily played into list building very well. So what I had was 2 Grey Seers on Screaming Bell, Plague Priest on Furnace, and a Plague Priest on Foot, Skabic and his Plague Pack, and and that's the heroes there. We took a Warlord so that we could have extra spell enhancement. Had Death Frenzy, which is a fight on death spell for Skaven. That's a mainstay of the list, so we had that twice in the list on the Grey Seer on Foot, which was the general. He had the Shaman of the Chilled Lands command trait, so he knew the Lord of the Primal Frost, had Hoarfrost and Merciless Blizzard as a threat there. Skitter Leap on him so that he could teleport as a hero, and then doubled that up on the Grey Seer on Screaming Bell so that you could have redundancies there. The Plague Priest on Plague Furnace had Rabid Rabbit, a prayer for +1 to attacks characteristics. Plague Priest on Foot had Filth Filth, which is a +1 to wound prayer. Skabic here was an extra control piece. This list functions as a board control mechanic and kind of a DPS or damage per second check there. The Grey Seers are 15 on Screaming Bells are 15 wounds each. They have a 4-up save, 5-up ward, and if they're within 3 inches of any Skaven unit with 3 or more models, they can shrug off or bodyguard wounds off on a 3+. So it makes them pretty tanky. They have a War Scroll +2 to cast bonus, and a mechanic for summoning a Vermin Lord if they get really high on the wounds allocated and survive to be able to roll a dice on your start of your hero phase. So we had all those heroes backed up by 2 units of 20 Clan Rats, 1 unit of 30 Plague Monks, and a unit of 10 Censer Bearers, along with a Hell Pit Abomination with the Toughened Sinews Prized Creations, which gave him a 4-up save and 16 wounds. A Warp Grinder for off-board deployment, and Skabic's Plague Pack. Also threw in the Pendulum there as an endless spell to kind of function as almost a shooting piece to be able to try and snipe some heroes if needed, but also add to the damage from spells and open up that battle tactic for magical mayhem. All rounded out into a battle regiment, a Vanguard and a Warlord, and the tech behind the Vanguard was putting the Warp Grinder and the Censer Bearers in that battalion, so it allowed them to have a reroll charge if I needed it, without a hero having to be there, because the Censer Bearers and the Warp Grinder, when they deep strike, they do not usually have support from a hero for a reroll in that charge. So that was basically the list. It did feature 3 Claw Steps Ahead, which is having 3 3 Master Clan heroes, which allows you to copy the first charge roll, run roll, and pile in units an extra 3 inches after you pile in the initial unit. It's 3 inches. So you have a pretty good chance of making the charges on the board. And that came up in the event. So round 1's battle plan here was Geomantic Pulse. You want to kind of talk about that one, Philip?
Yeah, Geomantic Pulse is a really fun battle plan. I've enjoyed it a lot. It's kind of the way I've had experience with it is it's a late game scoring kind of deal. So you want to start out, you're probably not going to get a ton of points. But later on in the game, I find myself winning or really breaking away from the competition by turn 3 and 4. That's where things really start to spiral out of control. It's a lot of fun. You got the pulse. Obviously, you started the second battle round. Whoever's going second gets to choose whether the pulse is going to start on A or B. And each battle round, it will move to the adjacent objective, going across either from A to B or B to A. And it's like I said, it's just a really interesting, unique, different kind of battle plan that I've really been enjoying this battle pack.
Yeah, definitely one that seems to be featuring a lot in tournaments around the country. So round one, my opponent was Henry Schenk. He was playing Slaves of Darkness. He got his invitation to this event for winning best appearance, I think at least once or twice throughout the series. He was playing a Host Ever Chosen list with Follow the Path to Glory, turn a hero into a demon prince, if I remember correctly. Chaos Lord on Kakadrak, Chaos Lord on Foot, Sorcerer Lord, Slave of Darkness Demon Prince was his general, and he had the Shashrek's Bitter Soul, the Exalted Hero in Chaos, and Unit of 5 Knights, Unit of 5 Chosen, Unit of 20 Warriors, Chaos Warriors there. They had the Blasphemous Icon and a Chariot, as well as an allied in Chimera, which was an interesting choice. And around out he had the Realm's Scourge Rupture, Wizard Finders Battalion, the Vanguard and Warlord, and he did not have a Thunderbolt Volley Holy Command. That is a typo. But here's his army. He won best appearance at one of the previous events. Pretty well painted army there. Looks really cool on the board. He's got the old school, what was that called again that in the spell? Do you remember the Baleful Vortex or something like that?
Yeah, I believe that's it. Yeah, Baleful Vortex, part of his display board there.
Yep. Pretty cool army. He's been working on it. We've been seeing it progress up, being painted up over time here, and it showed up nicely. So I did outdrop Henry in the beginnings of the round here. So I did end up taking turn one because I wanted the option, like Philip said on this battle plan, the person who goes second can choose which side the pulse will start on. So if you go first and you win ties on the roll off for turn two, you have a greater chance of getting that choice. So I ended up rolling extra movement on both my bells, so they were moving 12 inches. So we just threw everything into the center there, befouled the objective there on the right of center so that only Skavek's Plague Pack could contest it, and just kind of set up to get double turned. The Plague Furnace there is in the center for a Holy Within 13 Battleshock Immunity Aura, and we've got our Hell Pit on the right there, and our Plague Monks on the left as kind of two flanking threats. Sensor Bearers are off the board with deployment. As things kind of progressed, Henry did a push on the right-hand side there and went all in on the Hell Pit with his Knights and Demon Prince. We kind of just shuffled back and forth, not necessarily wanting to commit yet with the Warriors in the front there. This was his first time playing Skaven, so he was kind of feeling his way out. The Hell Pit took a lot of damage. Actually ended up coming back. He died and then came back on its 5-up with 5 wounds. As we went into the next turn here, the Hell Pit ended up taking out the Kakadrak and the Chariot that charged into to him, and Henry retreated out his Chaos Knights looking for a rally with that faction. He's got that 5-up rally. He didn't end up getting it. I dropped my Sensor Bearers there on the right-hand side of the board and made a charge into his hero, his Demon Prince. And the goal behind that was to try and score max. It kind of put me a little bit out of position with them because I chose the pulse, and I chose it to come in on that side, that right-hand side of the board. So I dropped in the Sensor Bearers and got the 9-inch charge. With the Claw Steps, helped a lot, and we did score the pulse early on that. With these events, you tend to want to score as high as you can. So I did take the risk of throwing them in, even though they might have been out of position later on. The Plague Monks, you see they're not there anymore. They made a nice charge over here on the left flank and just got completely eviscerated. I think they killed one chosen out of the whole thing. He did a couple wounds to that prince on this left there. Pretty bad showing. They were buffed up decently, but they just rolled. I just rolled very, very poorly. I think out of 120 attacks, I ended up with like 27 going through. So that didn't really work out very well for me. But we're still clogging up the center of the board there and going for control of the center. Ended up winning this game as the pulse slowly traveled over. Henry was unable to chew through the bells and the bodyguard and the -1 to hit and all those auras that came up from the bells. And I did end up on that bell that's on the left there on the terrain, ended up summoning a Vermin Lord, and we brought in Lord Screech, and he kind of rounded things out for us at the end there. So overall, it was a great game with Henry there. Always fun to play him. The Chaos Warriors are just hard to deal with, and I wanted to get on the objectives before him because I didn't know if I could push him off. So yeah, the win went to Skaven there for round 1. And gonna move into your list if you want to talk through your Blades of Khorne list. A little bit different than what you ran last time.
Yeah, so like I said earlier in the video, I like the mortals. I like the foot heroes. I love the skull crushers, don't get me wrong. They were one of the main models that got me interested in the army. The other one's the blood warriors. So this list originally started out being played as a Gore-Tide list with Gorga Skull, but after a test game, I kind of decided that I needed more staying power and less damage through murder rolls, and less damage through the +1 to wound deal. And I knew another little reason. I knew Seth was going to be running the Skaven army, kind of with the bells and whatnot. And I figured I'd probably get pinned in my deployment if I played against him, and the Gore-Tide thing would not come into effect at all. So I wanted to have that 5-up ward, so I played this as the Flayed. I nicknamed this army the Shucked, sticking with the Khorne meme. I had a double Warlord battalion, taking an extra prayer and an extra artifact. So I had access to all 6 prayers from the Khorne battle tome. I have them split up there, as you can see on the list. I'm not going to read them all out. But my general was going to be the Slaughter Priest there with the High Priest of Khorne, so he can chant 2 prayers. He had Crimson Plate just to keep that staying power up with that 5+ ward, just in case he's getting shot at or attacked. He's not really the optimal target to fight first in the combat phase to get the 5-up ward, so I just wanted him to be, stick around a little longer. Change from last time, my Nullstone artifact is going to be the hand-carved Nullstone icon instead of the pocket of dust, pocket sand, so to speak. I had a Blood Secrator in there with Banner of Blood for the Holy Within 16-inch reroll of charges. I had a Blood Stoker just to get some more speed, because, again, no cavalry in this list. And I had Scar Bloodwrath for the Blood Tithe farming and basically deep striking him after he dies. I had 2 units of Blood Reavers, a unit of 20 Blood Warriors with Gore Fists and Gore Axe, 2 units of Wrathmongers, a unit of 10 Skull Reapers, the Hex Skull Gorgers, the Wrath Axe, rounding it out there with quite a lot of going on in there.
Yep, for sure.
So the first game I played, against Doug, he had a really, really nicely painted Anvils of the Held and Hammer, paint schemed Stormcast. He, like myself, I also play Stormcast, and I painted them in Anvils. I painted them not because I loved the paint scheme or the rules for them back in the day. When I first started looking into Stormcast, it was I like the lore of Anvils. he was a kindred spirit in that, so he painted him that way. And he stuck with playing them, even though the rules are not optimal. Kind of stuck with the narrative and ran with it. Whenever the rule does come up, it's big in my opinion, but it's getting it to come up. Basically, into the charge phase, you roll 2d6, compare that roll to the bravery characteristic of enemy units, and then if you exceed, not meet, their bravery, you ignore the first 2 wounds dealt by that unit. It's very, very nice, but again, it's hard to roll over the bravery. In this game, it came up quite a few times because some of the mortals in Khorne, Blood Warriors, and the Reavers have fairly low bravery. So it came up a few times against the Blood Warriors. So it was kind of a slog. But yeah, he had the Lord Relictor, the Lord Exorcist, which came up once or twice for my 4+ rally from the Blood Secretor. Lord Arcanimon Celestial Dracoline, and he was running a unit of 3 Evocators on Celestial Dracolines as well. Just get that +1 to attacks characteristics on the claws. Those are a definition of a glass hammer. They're really, really good. They can do a lot of mortal wounds with their Celestial Lightning Arc, but just got to keep them alive. 4+ save is rough with no ward. So yeah, 10 Liberators, 10 Sequitors, 10 Vindictors, a unit of 4 Dracothian Guard Concussors with the big 2-hand hammers, and he had the Quester Soul Sworn War Band-Aid, we'll call it. Yeah, he was a great opponent to play against. Steadfast March was his holy command. Give you the, I believe that's a run and charge once per game. But yeah, it was a good time.
Yep, and Doug got his entry here from being best overall in one of the previous rounds. So here's kind of the first picture that we have for you here. It's just early on in the game.
So yeah, it was Geomantic Pulse. He gave me turn 1. He outdropped me and gave me turn 1. Turn 1, I went ahead and with Khorne and with this list, it can be difficult to get a turn 1 battle tactic. So knowing that, I deployed fairly forward. You can see that long gray stick in the kind of right-hand corner there. That was the edge of my deployment. I deployed behind that, and this is after the movement phase in this picture. So I took Intimidate the Invaders for battle tactic turn 1, and just moved up knowing you're only going to score 3 points turn 1 for a Geomantic Pulse. I was able to get the Wrath Axe off turn 1 and send it across the table. Did a total of 9 mortal wounds, 3 to the Liberators there, and then another 6 to the Concussors. I rolled the 2 up D3 twice. And that really helped me out later on in the game.
Yeah,
you can
that axe.
see he had his Quester Soul Sworn unit hidden behind the terrain there with his other heroes. What were we saying about
I was just going to say, yeah, the axe is really doing well for you. Well painted, for sure there. Liking it a lot. Got that Khorne cob that you're cutting in half with it. So there it is in action.
Yeah. It was it came up quite a few times throughout the tournament, and I really appreciate his right, my left in this picture to run it, and took out my unit of Blood Reavers. I did quite a few mortal wounds with murder rolls, and I believe I put that on his Arcanimon Celestial Dracoline, and did quite a few mortal wounds there. Just started to stack up a little bit of Blood Tithe. They did their job, and he killed also my other unit on the right-hand flank of Blood Reavers, and they did some mortal wounds to the Concussors on that end. Just moving on, I was able to have some really good plays here. On his turn, I believe he double turned me, and he charged in with his Dracolines as well as Concussors. He opted to go with the Drake Alliance first, which wasn't a horrible idea. I'm not sure if he. I don't believe he's ever played against Skull Reapers, but he figured that his concussors could weather the storm of their attacks, just because the way he had towed in on me and did some mortal wounds and shooting. So he went with the evocators first. His rolls were not the best, unfortunately, and he was attacking Wrathmongers, so I did quite a lot of mortal wounds. He rolled a lot of ones. I was able to kill one of the Dracolines just from the mortal wounds of rolling ones to hit with the Wrathmongers, and that allowed me to activate my Skull Reapers next, and they had that +1 to attacks from the Wrathmongers holding with 8, and I also planted the banner this turn. So I was able to pick up that unit of concussors and just continue to stack some blood tithe up for the future.
Nice.
And in my following turn, my rolls were not very good this game, and it was honestly quite frustrating. I failed a 3 or 4 4-inch rerollable charges, even while it was wholly within 16 of the Blood Secretor. I rolled a 3 into a 3 and then I rolled another 3 into a 2. And it was just like how, and my battle tactic was hinging on it, on the Skull Reapers on the right-hand side, trying to kill his Liberators or get into combat with them and push them off that objective, and just completely failed that battle tactic. But it turned into a slog there. The pulse started on the right-hand side, moving to the left in these pictures, and I pretty much had the middle of the battlefield pushed into his territory, blocking between those two Easter Island heads in the middle, big pieces of terrain. And Blood Warriors doing Blood Warrior things and just stood there. Took a lot of damage, came back, did a lot of mortal wounds. I would have been able to do some more rallying shenanigans and pulling opponents, pulling models back on the edges and do some 4-up rallying, but between his Sequitur, which the Sequitur Prime had the Redemption Cask, as well as his Lord Exorcist with the 9-inch no return of models ability, and he pinned me on both sides, so he would have had to do a lot of damage to me to actually get me away from those auras, which it didn't end up coming up. So no serious recursion in this game except for one clutch recursion towards the very end. Scar Bloodwrath came back at the end of his movement phase after he'd moved off of the far left objective, which would have been adjacent to the pulse in that turn, and stole it from him after he had moved off of it. So just Scar paid for himself and was a big MVP of this particular battle plan, but was able to pull out the win against Doug. It was great to see an Anvils of the Held and Hammer list. I've never played against it in 3rd edition, sad to say, even though that's my favorite sub-faction for Stormcast. I've yet to try it out. It's just the rules are they leave something to want, you know.
Yeah, definitely Stormcast in a weird spot for 3rd there. All right, so that left us both on 1 win each, going into round 2's battle plan of Fountains of Frost. And on this battle plan, if you had 3 or more units, yours and your opponent's, just total contesting an objective, you'd roll the dice, and on a 4-up, those units would take D3 mortal wounds. So you kind of wanted to spread out a little bit on this battle plan. Now my opponent was playing OBR. It was Chris McNeil. He won Best Lore, and I think he won it each time that he played in the events leading up to this. So he really put a lot into the lore, playing Mortis Praetorians, and wrote an entire backstory that was accurate to his army there. So really cool guy to play with. He only ended up having 3 hours of sleep the night before and was just there to just enjoy himself, and I think he did. So he had a Mortis Praetorians list, scales balanced, grand strategy there for ending with a unit at full strength from the recursion. He did have Catacross, and he is not on this list. I missed putting him in here. He had Catacross, Morrison Soul Mason, Ossifector, 3 Bone Shapers, and the Mortek Crawler, block of 20 guard, 10, and 3 Immortus guard. And the Victorian Acolytes Battalion for those extra primal dice. Yes, so Catacross was indeed in the list, and this is his army here on a nice little display board. Had LEDs flashing up like through the bottom of the glass, and a very well painted army. I liked it's actually purple on the shields there. It's one of the cool things I liked a lot. And kind of going into the match there, we both kind of deployed, spread out a little bit because we didn't want to take those extra bonus mortal wounds on our units. I deployed the plague monks to the left here within range of this gnaw hole, and the idea was to perhaps jump through the gnaw hole and try and hit that left side of his army. And the plague monks are the only unit in the Skaven army that have a +1 to charge, unlike most other armies. You have a +1 to charge on your banners. They're the only ones that get it, so that 9-inch charge is a little bit easier. So kind of deployed to where I could buff up them to their maximum potential, and deployed my Grace here back out of range. But I did outdrop him. I gave him turn 1 because he's pretty slow as OBR and objectives are far apart. So that was kind of his first turn. Just saw him moving up. Going into my turn 1, I did indeed buff up the plague monks, and I got every buff I wanted on them. So they were stacked up with all-out attack, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s from +1 to wound. They had an extra attack. They were levitating. They were death frenzies to fight on death. They had a mystic shield, and they had bless. So they made the charge from that gnaw hole like I talked about, and just completely annihilated the Immortus guard, of which I'd never faced before, but I knew that they could be tanky. So we went in for them, and we got Hoarfrost off as well for a Rin 3, and just took them completely out, and one of his heroes in the course of things as well. We kind of moved things up and stayed back from that 20 block and the Mortek in the middle, and just kind of started to strong side on the left side and kind of roll things up there. So we did end up scoring more on our first turn. We had a little bit back and forth on the turn 2 there. He kind of stayed to kind of hold his 2 objectives he had there, and tried to come back in on my plague monks with his heroes and his was that the Nightmare Predator? And the 10 Mortek. They didn't end up doing the job, so on my turn, I ended up pushing across and taking out Catacross with the Plague Monks and the Plague Furnace. And the Hell Pit made a nice long ball charge into the unit of 20 Mortek. And with his horde clearing ability, he'll pick a unit, and you roll a dice equal to the number of models that are wholly within 3 inches or within 3 inches of him. And at top bracket is 2 Upstream Mortals. So he actually, by himself, the Hell Pit, took out 19 of those Mortek guard, which was very surprising to me. The roar came up big on that unit. Excuse me. And that kind of ruled out the game for me. The Plague Monks pretty much won me that one by starting off strong. And Chris was a great opponent, functioning on little sleep, but enjoying his time there, as I did. So going into round 2, you had an opponent that you've played before.
Yeah, I played Lindsay the previous tournament on the exact same battle. This tournament, we used the same 3 battle plans as the previous one. And she was my round 2 opponent in that event, as well as in this one. And she changed up her list a little bit with some of the changes that FEC has seen recently, leading up to their new book. This was still old book stuff, because no FAQ out yet, but a little bit because they cannot be a little more sticky and kind of stuck around a lot more and held back, split passively, and scored points. This time she flung everything at me, and it was it checked me a little bit. I had to make some different decisions and stack some blood tithe, and some interesting plays came out of it. But overall, very similar list to last time. Spellcaster Savant. She had the dragon in there again. Just adjusted slightly from the previous event. And this is Lindsay's army here, making a makeshift display board from some of the terrain at the event. Very beautifully painted. One of the best painted there, in my opinion. I voted for her as the best sportsman, and I think I put her as my favorite army painted, or second favorite, can't recall. But yeah, it was it's always a pleasure playing against Lindsay. It was a back and forth. Some stuff died on both sides, but it was a great game. So yeah, Fountains of Frost is rough for this amount of bodies. So I deployed interestingly and had to allocate. Okay, this guy is contesting this objective, and this guy is this objective. Kind of back with some units and forward with others. She took turn 1 and deployed on the backboard so she could get her magical dominance off this time, because I did not have my Cygor, which she was worried about from last time. Cygor came in clutch last time we played. But yeah, turn 1 she got her battle tactic off and flung the dragon at me, and summoned some knights, and yeah, that dragon took out my Blood Reavers, but I was able to deploy backwards a little bit with a redeploy from the Skull Reapers just to stay away from that thing. Actually, I wasn't able to redeploy. I take it back. I did stay just slightly. Oh, I redeployed with the Blood Reavers. Excuse me. Whenever she moved forward, I redeployed forward and kind of over to the left to keep from Feeding Frenzy double attacking into my Skull Reapers. Skull Reapers do a lot of damage, and yes, they're 30 wounds in a block, but that 4-up save against getting fought twice with a lot of rend could have been devastating. So I was kind of worried of that. The Blood Reavers died, did some mortal wounds from murder rolls, and then the following turn, my turn, I went ahead and picked, I believe it was Slaughter Sorcery, or Slay the Wizard, or Slay the Sorcerer, the battle tactic from the Khorne Battle Tome, and was able to take out the dragon there, throwing the Wrath Axe at it, doing some mortal wounds here and there, and then just the Skull Reapers going in there and doing some work, which didn't really matter to Lindsay. She said he's there to summon and kill one thing turn 1, and that's exactly what he did. He summoned and he killed something turn 1. So all going according to plan. Yeah. So the game was hard fought for sure. I was able to scrawl the desecrated blood runes on that left Easter Island head, giving that +1 to hit aura, and did some work there. That helped out a lot. The right hand flank here, we see Scar Bloodwrath with the Blood Reavers over there. That was kind of a sticky situation, but it came out in my favor towards the end of the game. I ended up losing that right flank for a little bit, and then able to regain it. Something that happened, and I don't know if it ended up on the PowerPoint, but something that happened later on in the game after the dragon was dead. She moved up a unit of Skull Reapers on the left-hand side, and I had my Wrathmongers just ahead of them, but I redeployed so I could screen with the Wrathmongers, and she attacked with the unit of 20 ghouls, juiced up with extra attacks here and there and yon, and I ended up doing probably 12 mortal wounds from just her rolling once, because it was a good 50-something attacks she was rolling. And yeah, Wrathmongers, they work out as a screen. I've started to notice against high attack profile war scrolls, like your ghouls that can get buffed up, or I would imagine it would work good against Mortek Guard. But yeah, did a lot of work there and allowed me to play this army less of a pin and more of a counterpunch is how I played against Lindsay, and that's how it worked out. There was honestly so many dice were rolled this game, and it's not like either of us were rolling slowly. We played all 5 rounds. We had to talk out the last 2 because it was getting close to time. But the amount of dice, because she would attack with 50-something attacks. I would be doing mortal wounds in her combat phase. Then if she was attacking the Blood Warriors, I was doing mortal wounds to save. And then she was doing wards for all of that. And then if stuff died, I was also doing murder rolls. There was a ton of interaction. So it was hard to keep everything straight, but we managed to do a great job. 2 people that knew their armies fairly well. Lindsay knows Flesh-Eater Quartz like the back of her hand. She's been playing it for a while. And I've been playing Khorne quite a bit this year, so maybe not with these particular war scrolls, but yeah, it was a lot of dice. Lots of dice. In the end, I ended up taking the win on this game. I was able to take it home for the Khorne boys, scoring my grand strategy, killed all the wizards, and yeah, it was a great game. Great opponent, as always.
Yes, indeed. Very much so. So round 3's battle plan here was no risk without reward. Yet again, the same one that was played last time. And you want to go over this one?
No risk without reward is probably one of my least favorite battle plans.
I would second that.
It sounds like it would be fun, but honestly, it's maybe it's just with the army that I'm playing with, or the army that I played against. But it's so many dice being rolled. It's so much. It can take a long time to play a full game, just because you're 5 full rounds of combat usually. And a lot of times, I feel like this battle plan, the outcome is not necessarily solidified, but it can really, really stack the deck in one favor based off of deployment. The deployment is key in this, because if you don't know, no risk without reward, you can deploy into combat. There's no outside of 9 inches of enemy territory or outside of 3 of enemy units restriction when it comes to your deployments. You can deploy right up to the very edge. And that on top of rolling a bunch of mortal wounds for wizards when they die, it's a lot. It's a lot going on in this battle plan.
Yes, indeed. And we ended up having to play each other there for the final round and the win of the event.
Which is ironic, because the one practice game that he and I were able to squeeze in before the tournament was on this battle plan, and with these 2 same armies. So we had a pretty good indication of how the game was going to go, but we both fought it out as hard as possible.
Yep. Just wanted to highlight again how well your army on the display board there looking. A Khorne theme with all those corn cobs, just kind of running through some poor town, taking all the corn.
Good times. Taking all the corn.
So like Philip said, the deployment there, you can deploy pretty close, and that's what I did. If you watch the battle report that we did, where we ended up practicing this same one, I gave first turn away in that one, because I did outdrop Philip. But this time I decided, after getting a couple more reps under my belt on this list, that things worked out pretty well when I threw in the Plague Monks all buffed up through the gnaw hole with their +1 to charge, and I kind of set that up to where I could do that. And I wanted to jump on the center objective there and just kind of block things up with the 2 terrain pieces there, kind of helping to zone some things. So that was my idea going into it, and you had an interesting tactic that you were telling me about after that you were thinking about.
Yeah, my nephew and I were kind of spitballing on how to fight this list on this battle plan. Because my gut told me when we went to this tournament, I was like, I just feel like I'm gonna end up playing against Seth on that battle plan. So came up with an idea, and I set up for it kind of expecting to be given turn one. In hindsight, I should have deployed to where I could do both this and survive a turn one charge. But yeah, hindsight's 2020. So if I would have been given the turn, I would have pulled. I would have pulled. I think it's Bloodbind. Yeah, I would have summoned or I would have chanted for Bloodbind, which goes off on a 3. Pick an enemy unit within 16 inches, and then you can move. You have to move that enemy model 8 inches, and they can end. They can end that movement within 3 inches of enemy units. So the plan was to pull his first Screaming Bell away from his 3-up bodyguard, pull him into combat with my other units, and hopefully turn one take down one of the bells, and then go from there. It didn't work out. I wasn't given turn one, but yeah, that was the plan.
Yeah, that was the wombo combo you were talking about, I think, right? Moving up in the hero phase, pulling me in the hero phase, and then really getting everybody in. I think
The
that's
true
a
wombo
great idea.
combo, which went off once in this game and went off again earlier in the tournament, was you can chant Bloodbind and Killer Instinct, and if you have 4 blood ties, you can fight in the hero phase. So even if you're out of position, with the way that I have access to all the prayers in this list, you can really even move the priest that has Bloodbind on it forward with a hero phase prayer to get him within 16 inches of your target, and then use your Bloodbind to pull in the target that you want to kill in the hero phase. And that went off twice in this tournament, and it's so hard to survive that, especially whenever the unit you're fighting with in the hero phase is a unit of 10 Skull Reapers with +1 to attacks characteristics from the Wrathmonger. It's a lot of damage. It's a lot of dice. And when it works, and it's beautiful. But it doesn't work great against a 3-up bodyguard with a 5-up ward and all the rat bodies.
Yeah, so like we were talking about, I took turn one, and that saw me rolling. Both of the bells have an aura, a peel of doom, I think is what they call it, and you roll, and at d6, and whatever you roll gives you a result ranging from on a 1 doing d3 mortal wounds that cannot be negated to all the way to a 13-inch aura of roll a dice for each unit within 13, and a 4-up does d3 mortals. But the one that I ended up rolling on one of these 2 bells was an aura, I think it's on a 4, of -1 to hit within 13 inches for melee attacks. And in the Skaven book, if a hero that is not a monster and is a Master Clan hero is within 3 inches of a unit with 3 or more models, they gain that bodyguard, but then they also gain -1 to hit and melee. So those 2 things combined with the aura and the battle plan meant that most of the attacks coming into the furnace or the bells were at -2 to hit, and 3-up bodyguard on 2 clan rats, and the furnace is also a -1 to wound natively. So we just kind of shoved all that up in the front there, and
Felt like playing against Gargants at the beginning of 3rd edition is how it felt playing against this.
Yeah,
and with the terrain designed like it was, I was pretty much pinned into my deployment.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, was to jump on the center there. I befouled it with Skavik so that I could be the only one that would control it if the Plague Pack was there. Did a magical dominance as my first battle tactic and juiced up the Plague Monks with all the buffs I could outside of Unbind range. Got the -3 Rend on the Hoarfrost off on them, and Death Frenzy and all, and sent them through the Gnaw Hole, and they did make their charge. I failed the Claw Steps charge, but we rolled pretty good on those charges. Like, I think I had an 11 and a 12 at some point within all of this mess of rats. We brought down the Censer Bearers there on the right hand side of the furnace, and they made their 9-inch charge. So everything just kind of shoved up. The Plague Monks did a significant amount of damage to the Warriors, which have been the ones that made a lot of issues for me in the past. I'm trying to chew through them.
Yeah,
So,
you killed them turn one.
yeah, so the goal was to try and put as much as I could into them, and at least stop them from rallying, and then Death Frenzy into them. So that kind of, we had a lot of dice like you talked about in Lindsay's game as well, was kind of what we were at here. I was rolling to a hit, an attack, and then doing a ton of damage with 4 attacks each on each one of these 30 Plague Monks, and then you were hitting, I was doing damage, and then you were hitting back, and then there was Death Frenzy, fight on death.
5 attacks or 6 attacks each on my Skull Reapers. It was just, it was a lot.
Yeah, a lot of dice being rolled, and to be honest, not a ton to show for it. I know the board looks like it's a little bit more sparse there, but it was a lot of busy work, it seemed like.
Yep.
And there's a close-up of the center just showing how clogged up things actually were.
Some of the things that I would have done differently is probably, instead of going all in expecting to be given turn one, I should have held back maybe with my Blood Warriors and sacrificed a unit of Wrathmongers, putting them forward on that right flank for the ambush, and maybe pulled some of my units a little further back to where they were behind a piece of terrain, to where I wasn't fully stuck in that choke point. I could have, spread out and made things happen.
Yep. Yeah, this is just a shot from the Plague Monk side of view. There's only like 5 or 6 guys left there.
And they
After all
survived the
that.
entire game. No, it was the other unit.
Yeah, the Censer Bearers, for some reason, somehow made it through the majority
The
of the
entire
game
game.
there. Yeah. There's the Wrath Axe. Danger close for that chant going off. So it was coming out almost every turn, and you were getting that 6. What's it, like reroll or something like that?
2 up D3, and then you pick one unit and roll a dice, and then on a 6 is D6 mortal wounds. And I got it to go off, and a couple times and did 5 mortal wounds, but it just wasn't enough damage to overcome the amount of 3-up bodyguards that were going off. You're rolling really well on those 3-ups and the 5-ups, and it was I hesitate to say it was fun. No, it was fun. It was fun, but it was really, it was taxing.
Yes,
mentally. Like, we both said at the end of the tournament that we kind of crave to play a simpler list for a little while. We're going to play something with fewer units, less moving parts, because both of these lists were fairly techy. Lots of dice being rolled, lots of options and things you could try and do. And it was just so much.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. You got the skulls off a couple times, used them to good effect for move blocking and such, but in this Skaven list, you have 3 priests, so it does give you some recourse for some of the invocations that were coming out. And if a Skaven Pestilence priest is wholly within 13 of another one, you get +1/+2 chance and all that. So that helped me get off the prayers that I needed. And we did end up summoning 1 Vermin Lord, Alpha 1 Bell, and the other bell there with the finest hour on it in the center did end up dying. Didn't get a chance to roll on that. I think it only had like 1 wound left somehow, but ended up getting lifted by the end of it. We did bring 1 Vermin Lord on, and that gave us Screech, which I think is probably the best one to bring on because he's got the most versatility, and you can't choose artifacts or command traits for him, so he's pretty versatile.
So one other thing that I want to highlight before we kind of wrap this up is, again, having played against this list with this list on this exact battle plan once before, I knew it was very difficult to get some of your more easy battle tactics. For example, surround and destroy. I knew that that was going to be one that I was going to have to take to win, or have to take to actually be worth scoring an objective. And Seth's going to test this. I started setting up for that turn one, and it took me that long just to break through and get surround and destroy set up. I had one unit of Blood Reavers that from the beginning of the game was just slowly moving across the table, avoiding stuff that was popping up in the Warp Grinder and all these different things, trying to get to that table edge, and it was hard fought, but I mean, I scored my 2 points. That's the only thing I scored that turn. I scored my 2 points.
Yeah, I think it took you I think it was your turn 4 or something like that.
That was turn 3 for sure.
But you got there, for sure. Yeah. Yep, so ended up with a Skaven victory there. Odds were pretty stacked against you on that particular battle plan, and if you want to see the other game that we're talking about, the practice game beforehand, that one is on the channel as well. But yeah, so that's kind of our summary of this invitational event, the Realmgate Wars event, hosted by John, the TO for this event. Special thanks again to Mutt and Anthony for helping out there at Go4 Games in Metairie. It's a great place, Louisiana. If you're checking it out, it's we say Metairie, but it's basically New Orleans as well. But so if you're in the area, check them out. They've got good spaces, and Matt, the owner of the store there, has the best food recommendations. So if you're looking for a restaurant after you play in a game, go talk to him for sure.
Yeah, I concur. I agree. Yeah, it was a great event, and I'm looking forward for him to doing another series. Hopefully next year they stick with the Age of Sigmar tournament series like they did this year.
Yeah, very, very enjoyable. Great group of people to play with. And let us know what you guys think. We have playlists that have been created for each army. So if you want to go see more Khorne, there's an entire playlist with all the Khorne battle reports. Skaven, same thing. Let us know what y'all think about this. And we'll see y'all on the tables.
Yep, we got some exciting things coming down the pipes for some of the future battle reports, I hope. So stay tuned.